Hi, it's Nick, the average chess guy, and welcome to your complete guide to the Queen's Gambit, the opening that gives you a crystal clear plan for move 2. The Queen's Gambit is one of the oldest and most respected openings in all of chess. It isn't flashy, and it is not based on cheap tricks, but it is powerful, strategic, and perfect to help average players like us build a rock-solid foundation and start winning more games. It all kicks off after the moves d4, d5, and c4. Now, the word gambit might sound a little scary. It means you're offering a pawn, right? Well, yes and no. The Queen's Gambit is often called the fake gambit because, as we are about to see, if black takes the c4 pawn, we can almost always get it back with zero trouble while building a solid advantage. The entire point of these first two moves is to fight for the most important part of the board, the center. By playing d4 and c4, we are immediately challenging black's control over d5 and basically saying, the center belongs to me. The pressure forces your opponent to make a big decision right away. Do they accept the gambit or do they decline? No matter what they choose, we've got a simple and effective plan waiting for them. Okay, before we dive into punishing specific mistakes, you'll need to understand the two core ideas that make the Queen's Gambit so powerful: central control and rapid development. First up, central control. Think of the center squares, d4, e4, d5, and e5, as the high ground in a battle. If you control them, your pieces have more room to move, more influence, and way more power. Our move c4 is designed to attack black's central pawn on d5. We're trying to trade our side pawn, the c-pawn, for the central d-pawn. Second, rapid development. An opening isn't just about pawn moves. It's about getting your pieces into the game as fast as you can. The Queen's Gambit structure naturally lets your knights and bishops fly out to strong, active squares. Because we're fighting for the center, our pieces have open lines and clear targets. This is a huge problem for many sub-1000 players, who often play way too passively and leave their army sitting on the back rank. The Queen's Gambit gives you an immediate, dynamic plan to get your pieces into the fight. So, what happens when your opponent can't resist the temptation and plays d takes c4? This is the Queen's Gambit accepted. At the beginner level, this is one of the most common things you'll see. Your opponent thinks they've just won a free pawn, and now their only mission is to hold onto it for dear life. This is a massive mistake, and we're going to make them pay for it. Do not panic. I repeat, do not panic. This pawn isn't a gift. It's bait. Our plan is simple. Take back the center and win back the pawn. A solid move here is e4. This is the most direct way to build that powerful pawn center. You're immediately challenging black and creating a formidable pressure. By taking on c4, black has given up their foothold in the middle, and we're taking full advantage. Now, your opponent, in their greed, will often try to defend that pawn. You might see a move like b5. They're trying to build a little pawn wall to protect their prize. This is exactly what we want. This move weakens their position even more and wastes time they should be using to develop their pieces. And now we play the move a4. This move is like a battering ram, aimed right at their weak link in the pawn chain. Your opponent has a dilemma. If they defend with a6, we can simply take the pawn. Some beginners will immediately take back without thinking twice. This is a huge mistake, as they've now exposed an unprotected rook that we can take with rook takes a8. It's a classic trap that thousands of beginners fall for. If they defend with c6, then we simply exchange pawns, and we are left with two powerful pawns controlling the center and plenty of room for our pieces to develop and get into the fight, which is more than enough to make up for the lost pawn. Plus, with many lines, we are likely to get back the pawn in the long run anyway. Another move you might see to try and defend the extra pawn is bishop to e6. This doesn't work, as we can simply kick it away with d5. Their bishop is forced to move, and we scoop up their pawn with bishop takes c4. Now material is even. We have two solid pawns in the center. Our bishop is out, and we have plenty of room for our pieces to develop, while black is stuck with no development and no control of the center. No matter how they try to hold on to the c4 pawn, black wastes moves and creates weaknesses. Meanwhile, we're developing our pieces, controlling the center, and getting ready to launch a crushing attack. Now, let's look at a more sophisticated response, but one that beginners often play without really understanding it, the Queen's Gambit decline. This happens when black decides not to take our pawn and instead supports their central pawn with e6. This is a solid, respectable move. However, at the sub 1000 level, players make a critical error. They play passively. They defend their center, but they have no idea what to do next. A major downside of playing e6 is that it blocks their light-squared bishop on c8. Our plan? Exploit this passivity and suffocate them. We're just going to continue with natural, developing moves. We play knight to c3, bringing a knight out and adding more pressure to the d5 pawn. Your opponent will almost certainly play knight to f6, a standard developing move. Now, we make a key move. Bishop to g5. This simple bishop move creates a world of problems for black. We're pinning their knight on f6 to their queen. This means the knight can't move without the queen getting captured. This pin is incredibly annoying. It paralyzes their pieces and makes it tough for them to get any plan going. Your opponent will likely try to break the pin with bishop to e7. This is all pretty standard, but here's where we apply the pressure. We continue with a simple, powerful move. We play knight to f3, developing our other knight, and e3, reinforcing our center, and getting ready to unleash our own light-squared bishop. From here, we often play queen to c2. This move does a few things. It prepares to connect our rooks, adds another defender to the e4 square, and puts pressure down the c-file. In this structure, black is often cramped and just struggling for a good plan. They can't easily develop their light-squared bishop, and their pieces are tripping over each other. Our plan is simple. Finish developing, castle our king to safety, and then start turning up the heat. We can look to expand on the queen side with moves like rook to b1 and b4, starting what's called the minority attack to create even more weakness in black's position. Against the passive Queen's Gambit decline player, your strategy is suffocation. Use that pin with bishop g5, develop your pieces to their best squares, and slowly squeeze your opponent until their position cracks under the pressure. If you're finding this guide helpful and you're ready to start playing the Queen's Gambit with confidence, do me a quick favor and smash that subscribe button. Now we've got one more critical response to cover that you absolutely need to be ready for. The third major response you'll face is the Slav Defense, which begins with c6. This is another way for black to decline the gambit by reinforcing their d5 pawn. The idea behind the Slav is to support the center without locking in the light-squared bishop, which was the main headache in the Queen's Gambit decline. This is a very solid setup, but it also has its own common beginner mistakes that we can punish. One of the most frequent mistakes you'll see is an early, thoughtless bishop to f5. Black develops their bishop outside the pawn chain, which seems logical. However, this move can leave the b7 pawn seriously weak. We can punish this with a very simple plan. First we play c takes d5. Exchange pawns. After black recaptures with their c-pawn, we unleash the move queen to b3. This queen move is a double attack, hitting both the b7 pawn and the central d5 pawn. Black is immediately thrown on the defense. Often, they can't defend both pawns at the same time. If they try to defend the b7 pawn with a move like queen to b6, we can trade queens, and after the recapture on b6, we're often just winning a pawn in the endgame. If they ignore the threat, we can simply snatch the pawn on b7, ruining their pawn structure, and often winning material. This simple sequence, trade on d5, then play queen b3, is a powerful weapon against an early bishop f5, and will win you a lot of quick games. Another option we have against the Slav Defense is the exchange variation by playing cxd5 early. After c takes d5, the pawn structure is symmetrical. Our plan is to simply develop our pieces faster and more effectively than our opponent. A great setup is to play knight c3, knight f3, and then develop our dark-squared bishop to f4. This gets our bishop outside our pawn chain before we play e3. Our setup is harmonious and easy to play. All of our pieces have natural squares to go to. Meanwhile, black still has to solve the problem of how to develop their own pieces without getting into trouble. By playing a simple, solid setup, we put the pressure on our opponent to be the one to make a mistake. Now it's your turn. Try the Queen's Gambit in your next 10 games, then come back to this video and let me know in the comments how it went. Share your wins, share your questions, and let's start climbing that rating ladder together. If you want to see more opening guides just like this one, make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.